Okay. Here we go. A binomial times a binomial. And practice. So we're taking this skill that we practiced the other day with a monomial times a polynomial, and we're going to increase our skill level. We're going to take it up to the next level, which is a binomial times a binomial. We will only be working with a 2-term times a 2-term. No other types of polynomials, just very specific binomial times a binomial. Only a 2-term times a 2-term today. The other day we could have had any type of polynomial, but today is a binomial times a binomial. And it's a variation of the distributive property. So it's called, because it's a binomial, there are 2 things that you're distributing. So it's double distribute. And I'm going to show you what that means, and then over here we're going to write out in words what that looks like. But if I have an example, so 4x minus 8 and 2x plus 2. So I have 2 terms here that I'm distributing over to this term, these 2 terms. So it's called double distribute. So what I do is I take this first term in my first binomial and I distribute it once, and then I go back to this first term, just like I would have done yesterday, and I distribute it again. So I take the first term and I distribute, boom, boom. Then, reverse, come back, and I take this second term, which is -8 in this problem, and I distribute it once. And then I come back, and I take this second term, and I distribute it again. I'm double distributing. This is one of those things that is kind of iconic in algebra. It's called FOIL. And what it means is you take the first term times the first term. So this is called first. First term times the first term. O is outside. The outside term times the outside term. If you follow my color coding, first term times first term, outside term times outside term. I is inside. Taking the inside term times the inside term. And L is last. The last term times the last term. First, outside, inside, last, FOIL. And so if I work that out over here, and when we're starting to do this, I put F. And my F is 4x times 2x, the first term times the first term. 4x times 2x is 8x squared. Then I go to the outside, first term times the other outside term. 4x times 2 equals 8x. Then I've distributed the first term twice. Now I switch. Inside terms, negative 8 times 2x is negative 16x. And L, last term times last term, negative 8 times 2 is negative 16. I'm not done yet. I've just done my distributing. Because my answer, if I wrote it in a long string, would be 8x squared plus 8x minus 16x minus 16. About 90% of the time, you're going to have two terms that are like terms. So you need to look for like terms to combine. Typically, they're going to be in your O and I. It's not always going to be there. Sometimes you multiply and you're going to end up with 4 different terms. You're always going to have 4 terms in this initial process. Sometimes you can combine like terms and your answer will be a trinomial. Maybe it'll even be a binomial. But you're going to look for like terms to combine. These two are like terms. So my final answer, I'm going to write it out. Before I simplify, it's 8x squared plus 8x minus 16x minus 16. But these are like terms. So my answer is 8x squared. 8x minus 16x is negative 8x minus 16. And I just did a binomial times a binomial. Let's write out the steps for those of you that are rule followers, right? You like to have rules. So number 1 is multiply the first term with an E, by the first term. First term times first term. Then you're going to do first term. Oh my gosh, why am I not spelling term right? By the last term. First, outside, or let's say by the outside term. We can put very last. Then I'm switching. I'm going to go to the second term by the other inside term. And then the second term by the very last term. So you take the first term times the first term. The first term by the very last term. The second term by the other inside term. Second term by the very last term. And then last is look for like terms to combine. Color coding helps if you're a visual. Oh, I didn't even show you the words, sorry. Color coding is helpful if you're a visual learner. If you look at the colors and that's what works for you, that's gonna help you a lot in this process. I'm suggesting the arrows to help you keep track of what you're doing. Writing out foil, we're gonna do that right now as we practice. Here we go. So if I have x minus 3 and 4x plus 8, and I put FOIL. Now, I will tell you this. You do not need to write out what you're multiplying. That's in our notes right here. When I do this, when we are getting good at this, I'm just going to say, okay, x times 4x is 4x squared. 1 times 4 is 4, x times x is x squared. Then I'm going to come back, x times 8. X times 8 is 8x. I come back. I'm now onto my second term, negative 3 times 4x. Negative 3 times 4x is negative 12x. And I come back for the last negative 3 times 8. Negative 3 times 8 is negative 24. So now I look to see, are there like terms to combine? They're right here. They might not always be in the middle, so you have to really look. And my final answer is 4x squared. 8x minus 12x is negative 4x minus 24. If you wanted to talk, the leading coefficient is a 4. It's a quadratic trinomial. It may be out of order. 9 minus 3x, 4x plus 1, right? This is not in standard form. That's okay. It's not going to change how, that's an I, how we multiply. So first term is still 9 times 4x is 36x. And again, it's okay to multiply out of order because when we write our final answer, that's going into standard form. 9 times 1 is 9. Negative 3x times 4x is negative 12x squared. And negative 3x times 1 is negative 3x. I look for like terms. My like terms right now are here. Negative 12x squared. 36x minus 3x is positive 33x plus 9. Leading coefficient is negative 12, quadratic trinomial. We're going to end up with a lot of quadratic trinomials. It's not always going to happen. Our next example won't be one, but that's going to be the main type of problem we get, or solution we get. All right, so let's try negative 3x plus 1 times 4x plus 8y. And FOIL. So, first times first. Negative 3x times 4x is negative 12x squared. Negative 3x times 8y is negative 24xy. I can't combine, so I just list them out. Then I have 1 times 4x, which is 4x. And 1 times 8y, which is 8y. I look for like terms. Nothing. I don't have any like terms. Nothing can be combined. So I'm going to write my answer. I'm starting with largest degree. This is a degree of 2. This one's a degree of 2. 1 and 1 is 2. However, x squared is alphabetical. So negative 12x squared minus 24xy plus 4x plus 8y. So I did not end up with a trinomial this time. I ended up with a 4-term polynomial. So sometimes you cannot combine like terms. Sometimes it's just not going to happen. Sometimes you can. Sometimes you're going to combine like terms and you'll end up with a binomial because 2 of the terms cancel out. Binomial times a binomial is double distributing. It's taking that first term, taking that second term. Bam, bam.